Hello. It is early in the West Coast. I'm gonna wait for people to jump on, and in the meantime I'm just gonna introduce myself. I am Jackie Brubaker. If you were just going through stories and looking at stuff and being like, who's this person who's live who's gonna talk about marriage? I'm Jackie Brubaker. I'm a relationship specialist. I am here. Hello. Yay. 2 people. Woohoo. I basically talk about how to live your best dating relationship life and also how to work on yourself as a person, because that's how we're all going to start, right? That's how we're actually going to be our best partner to someone else and receive the best partnering from that other person, is if we work on ourselves first, heal our open wounds that have not healed, and then actually pick the right partner. Because most of our relationships are failing because we're coming from a place of not completely being totally together. And yay, there's the dating doc. Also, today I am bringing on the dating doc, and he is just about to jump on. Give him just a second. And we're going to talk about marriage and if it's still worth it. There he is. Hello.
Hey, how's it going? Can
Good,
you hear me?
how are you?
Testing 1, 2. Oh
Let me
man.
turn you up just a little bit. All right, cool, great.
I don't want to mess up your intro because I was like totally like in the zone listening, and I was like, oh wait, I'm the guy that has to go on. So.
Awesome. Yeah. So tell people a little bit about yourself and where you're from, and we'll get into the topic.
Okay. Awesome. So, dating doc, Chris Feliciano. Greetings from San Antonio, Texas. Been doing dating service type things for about 10 years now. Started out doing events and a little bit of date coaching and then matchmaking. And then everything changed when I saw that, I call it algorithm apocalypse. Once Tinder and Instagram came on, there's a lot of avenues for people to meet. So I knew that the issue wasn't where singles need to meet, but how they should date. And then that's where Dating Doc kind of came about. Army officer, loving, active dad to a beautiful now 9-year-old daughter. And yeah, that's me. I don't want to like run on too much on I feel like I'm like bioing it up. But let's see what else. Random facts. I love coffee. I love almonds.
Like breakfast. Okay.
Yeah. We just hit some random facts, right? Yeah. Let's see what else. Growing up as a kid, my first childhood crush was Alyssa Milano from Who's the Boss. So that might be a generational thing, since I'm a little bit older. But
she was cute. She was definitely cute. I feel like she aged really well too. So
yeah.
Cool. So we're going to talk about marriage today and whether marriage is still relevant or if it's just as awesome as it's ever been. And you brought this topic up to me, and it's definitely a very juicy, relevant topic that a lot of people can argue both sides of. So I'm going to let you start. First of all, have you been married before?
I have not.
Okay. All right. This is interesting. All right, good. So I'm going to let you start and tell your opinions on all of this, because I certainly have my own and I just want to be listening.
So it is an interesting topic, and especially when a male dating coach or someone in the male in the dating space, there's always going to be the quick knee-jerk reaction that, oh, he's got to be against it. I'm actually for and against it, and not because I'm indecisive, but because it's a lot more complex than simply saying yay or nay. There's a lot of factors involved. And especially when we talk about U.S. marriage, because, we still have arranged marriages happening around the world. We still have contract marriages, sugar daddy, sugar baby marriages. There's all kinds of different ways to even there's common law married, which is something at least here in Texas. So even defining what hits the threshold of marriage can be defined in many ways. But to answer the question, I truly do believe in lifelong bonds, healthy parenting, just having a badass partner that you can evolve with individually and, you know, into geriatric age, right? I truly believe in that. What I believe becomes more of a no, at least for the U.S. marriage, you know, I guess you can say traditional marriage route, is when the external gets involved on something that's more love and bond. You know, when the government says, hey, look, which is a separate topic, but, you know, when the government's telling women how to control their bodies, but at the same time, how you should manage your marriage. And if things don't go well, there's a lot of mental health fallout, a lot of financial risk. I think that there's an aversion to why we're at one of our lowest marriage rates. Our divorce rate has actually gotten better. I think we went from 51 to 39%, but that's still not like we're bragging about too much yet. You know, I don't think it's, you know, I don't think we're kind of in the safe zone yet when it comes to the U.S. marriage piece of it. And more telling are the lack of marriages happening, the marriage rate that's actually dropped. I think that's very telling.
Right.
So yeah.
I think that a big part of the lack of marriage is, you know, our generation and younger generations have seen so much divorce with their own parents. And I certainly came from a family of divorce, and it was ugly for years. And it's terrifying. I know me and so many other people I talk to, it's like, I never want to live through that again. And I never want that to happen to me. So I think that, you know, this generation and the younger generations are just creating these expectations of what they're looking for and what marriage is and what their partner needs to encompass. And it's really hard to hit those expectations with someone. And so, thus, they're not getting married. A, because of fear, and B, because is this even the right person?
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's dropped tremendously.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you brought up a good point, which I see with a lot of clients, is that we normally focus on our own mental checklist of what those standards or expectations are. But it's human nature that we rarely look at what we bring to the table to see if we match those same standards, you know, because a lot of us, we're an emotional wreck, an ambivalent or anxious, preoccupied mess. But yet, you know, for example, if it's a woman looking for a guy, he's got to make six figures, he's got to be 6 foot tall, he's got to be emotionally vulnerable, he's got to be masculine, he's got to be able to provide me freedom, but at the same time can comfort me when things are going bad. But then when you flip the script, I'm an emotional mess, I'm very insecure about my body, I get bored easily, you know, so it's like, or, you know, if you look at a man looking for a woman who, you know, she's got to be good looking, she's got to be sexual, she's got to be the type that's very collaborative instead of competitive, and then you flip the script. But in reality, all I do is play video games, watch the wrong kind of websites, I'm undermotivated, so it's like, come on now. You know,
Yeah.
so I think if we do a little bit more self-reflection, self-awareness, we can find out, okay, are we embodying what we want?
I could not agree with that more. And that's what I was kind of saying at the beginning, is that you're not going to be able to choose the right partner for you until you really do the work. And by work, I mean like find that trauma, find those wounds, and be brave enough to even heal that. Because relationships are not for the faint of heart. They are not for the weak. They are truly, if you know anything about commitment, whether it came from sports or your career or wherever you have experienced true commitment, that's the kind of level of work and practice and experience that you need to put into a marriage if you choose to actually get married. Let's talk about why people choose to get married and then why they choose not to. Obviously, you mentioned legal aspects, and that's very true and very real, and every state is different. But I do, you know, then there's statistics too, like, oh, marriage is, you know, you're more likely to divorce if you get married versus staying with a committed partner in a cohabitating relationship. So what are your thoughts on that?
So there's some, so for example, me being military, I've seen very peculiar reasons why people get married. When you have a young soldier who may be going off to war, they need a purpose, right? It's like they want someone they want to miss. So, and then at the same time, which is kind of a little more materialistic, they want to get out of the barracks. If they're a young soldier that just joined the military, like they don't want to live in the barracks anymore, so they get married so they can live like in a house apartment with, with their wife, right. Woman. And which I find funny, by the way, because I can see it 200 miles away already. If they're the young soldier who like marries a stripper, because the stripper's giving him attention. I'm serious. This happens more than it should. Oh, hey, shout out to Grand Cam there. So and then what ends up happening is they sign off a general power of attorney, and then they lose all their money because the woman is up on game and understood what happened. There's also other relationships based on very toxic emotional dependence. Like, hey, I don't want you to ever leave, so we need to get married. And it doesn't come from this pure altruistic love, true loving place. So I'm kind of getting the bad news out the way on why people get married, at least on the U.S. side of the house. Bloomfield. And then now the real reasons why I think people should get married is they've started with the partnership mindset, and they're like, hey, look, I'm attracted to you physically, mentally, spiritually, regardless of organized religion. Like, there's a spiritual level here. Connection, right. And that's honestly what I'm even looking for, me personally. And it kind of is, it sucks for us because we're so aware of this that when people find out we do this, there's a level of intimidation.
Yes, that's so true. But it weeds out the weak. I'm not going to lie.
Does but by now, I'm sure the men trying to get your attention are like, they're like applying to Harvard times 10, and vice versa. I mean, but I mean, those are kind of things I'm looking for, is that extra oomph beyond the sexual connection, beyond the mental connection, especially beyond like the surface dating, like the wittiness, the funny, the stuff that takes care of you for the first couple of dates, but like, okay, the great beyond, as I call it mentally. Right. So that, you have your rare folks that are still getting married for those reasons. But something you alluded to was the overabundance of options in this digital age. We are now, especially because we're receiving so much digital information every day, we get burned out easily of just dating, which is kind of the bridge that takes us to possible marriage. Right. And not to mention this beauty standards and the emotional standards, yet ironically, the emotional wreck that we also are falling into. So a lot of that has to deal with the technology as well.
I agree with that. I mean, when I first, years ago, when I first got on an app, I was like, this is like a video game. It really felt like a video game. And I don't play video games because I'm actually quite competitive with games. So I just don't play games.
All right.
Just don't play any of the games.
Yeah. Good mindset.
I remember thinking that and just thinking, I mean, I could just keep swiping and this reward trigger comes up. Yep. So I think that the reward trigger is there with the apps and it's never really fulfilled. Even if you do match with someone, you're like, wow, oh my gosh. If you guys don't start talking in a real, actual way, I mean, I love this. I think this is so funny when people are like, hey, I'm going out of town for a week. To me, if you just met that person, they might as well have died. Like, that's it. Like, unless they keep in touch, but which most people from apps don't. But, then it's fine. But it's such a reward building thing. And it's constantly chasing the carrot with apps. So, I mean, and this is not about apps or anything like that, but the trigger of reward is also connected to commitment. And that's why people stay in marriages for so much longer than they needed to, because when you sign, and I have not, but like when you sign those legal documents, there's a whole other kind of like emotional event that happens within men and women. Doesn't matter what you say you are or what you are inside. It is an emotional shift. And suddenly you are now your parents and you are continuously thinking, what were my parents' roles? Okay, well, I'm the wife, so like I'm going to be like my mom. Subconsciously, you might not even realize we're doing this. And then your husband or wife is doing the same thing. And then suddenly you could have been living together for 7 years, perfectly fine. Get married, boom. It's like, wait, why are you a different person? And why are you expecting different things from me? And that's one of the biggest reasons I think people divorce quickly thereafter getting married, and they don't realize, oh shoot, like these are old stories and old wounds that I have never even known were there. And the thing with commitment and reward is that if you're able to actually do that work and stay committed, because now you've signed all these legal documents and you're like, okay, like we really got to make this work. And also the social commitment that you've now proven to everyone you're together. It's this huge social contract. There's a reward in that, you know. You basically just want to stay together to prove everyone wrong, to prove your parents wrong, prove yourself wrong. Like, look at what I did. 20 years, I'm miserable, but we're still together. And I don't want anyone to be miserable in a 20-year marriage, because I know you don't have to be. But if you're not, like I said, if you are not willing to do the work, like, relationships are not for the weak.
Exactly, facts. And especially now when you make things Facebook official, right? Now you feel that pressure to like make it work. And I know for a fact, because I even get these messages from Facebook friends. They're like, okay, dating doc. I'm like, come on, call me Chris. Come on, you know, these are my friends, right? But anyway, they're looking for advice and they're married, right? So going back to the apps part, because I think it's interesting to talk a little bit about that bridge that even gets to courting and marriage, which is dating, right? So these companies, Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, et cetera, most of them are Match Group Limited. They own a lot of that. They have gamified a very organic process, up to the point that now I'm out here, like, if I see them at an antique store and they look good to me, I'm going to talk to them, because I'm like, okay, we're away from the apps. And plus, you know, kind of like, I naturally, like, I'm not on the make. I'm not going out and looking for a woman at an antique store, but if I see a good looking one, then hey, there's a commonality there.
I mean, it's niche, but it's there.
As I'm looking at, you know, for leather satchel bag one. Anyway, but these companies have gamified the apps. All they care about, obviously, is the bottom line. And in a way, it's almost social pollution. It's like a company who's spilling oil into the ocean, but making a lot of money. These companies have created, in a way, social pollution, to the point that we're dopamine addicts. You know, we're chasing the carrot, as you talked about, and it just causes this burnout to where you really don't even want to be original. You don't want to lead with any depth or character. And then you're back to square one, because that's honestly all they care about. And they know how to gamify it in a way to where it's a dopamine hit, up to the point that now our collective behavior is chasing that dopamine, whether it's viral news, whether it's something that's controversial, whether we get offended over something. You know, it's even changed our mindset, and these apps are part of that. So that there's that part, and whoever's watching, to kind of be aware of that matrix you're in if you're a dating app addict or user, you know. Now, the other part about the parents thing, which I thought was interesting, once you sign the legal document, the only reason that we get it into upheaval, which is something I fear, is because you're signing a legal document, and now you have someone you're accountable beyond just your relationship. And that's where I catch a case of the 4 point of contact, you know, because what we're looking at is now you have an outside entity, and you can have relationships that are going perfect. Like you said, the second you sign that document, things are like, oh my gosh. And the reason being, it would be analogous to you managing your own body, doing what you're supposed to, but all of a sudden now you got to sign on a dotted line and tell the government when you're going to get an abortion, or when you've dropped weight, or what your dress size is. You're gonna feel some certain kind of way. And I think that's why, and I don't want to make this a political thing, but love and bond is very organic. It's a law of nature. So when all of a sudden, when you got an outside entity that's sort of governing that, you know, women are not property anymore. And you know, women are making in some fields more money than men. So all of a sudden now we're still taking this old school mentality on the legal piece and trying to apply it to a modern world where there's a reason there's a divorce rate that we have and people aren't getting married. And I think that's something that does need to get overhauled. Just like we have new phones every couple of years, we need to update the way that marriage is looked at least U.S. marriage.
So with the legal aspects of marriage, you're saying that people just don't have a whole lot of autonomy, essentially. How do you feel that it creates less autonomy legally?
So, for example, if let's say they, and I'll get back to like once they're, if they're married, but I'm also look at the other side of it is if there's a divorce and there's kids involved. Now the government tells you where you can and can't live. It's, for example, Dr. Dre just got divorced from Nicole Young, and I believe she's getting $300K a month. Like, you know, I know some awesome teachers that are making $30K a year, and you know, they might still be happily married. But again, the government is you know, mandating Dr. Dre to pay Nicole Young $300K. I'm not downing her because again, this is more of a legal. This is what, you know, comes out. Now, do I think someone needs $300K a month? That's a whole another topic there. That's a bit much. So there's that piece that especially men, you know, are looking at, because without looking at the statistics, from when it comes to spousal support, a lot of it's going to be the men paying for that. That's just facts. It's not a male versus female thing. It's just numbers. Yeah. So yeah, the government's, you know, telling you, even if you're a responsible, loving father, you may end up, you know, if you're successful, you may still have to end up paying, you know, your ex-wife, who may be the reason, or you might be the reason you're getting divorced, but you still got to pay her $300K, even if she has her own job. And that, to me, honestly, kind of indirectly is a little bit sexist towards women, and then it becomes a huge mental health fallout for men, because they're not going to want to even look at possibly even getting married again or even connect with someone because of that fear. So, and that's involving an outside entity. Now, I'll leave it with this real quick. The outliers are the deadbeat dads. That system is in place for the deadbeat, non-responsible dads, or the woman who gave up a lot. They sacrificed not being able to find a job because they're there for the husband, like a military husband. So I understand that part. I understand the system created for that part. So I'll be quiet now.
Okay, well, that's good. I'm glad you did get that caveat, because I'm like, there is a reason why. No, I mean, absolutely. Going back to, you know, I had a conversation with someone recently, and we both had, you know, parents who had terrible divorces, and a lot of it is just all about money and all about like who gets the kids more and what is, and, you know, creating pawns out of children. And so I think if what I'm hearing is more towards, I'm afraid of the divorce if I get married, and then the legal repercussions and not being able to see my children, or not having sort of the freedom or autonomy to live a life separate. Is that what I'm hearing more of a fear from?
Especially, I would say, for men, because you hear a lot of these tells, and you know, given the choice, some men would say, hey, look, I would even, quote unquote, spoil my woman, take care of her financially, emotionally, every which way, and live together forever and be devoted to each other, than having this outside entity all of a sudden direct my life. That's the fear.
So what if you're with someone not married for 15 years and you have kids, and then you do end things? What happens then? Especially if she's been just a stay-at-home mom.
So I'll give an example. Like me and my ex, before she got married, there was nothing court ordered. I won't go into detail. She's getting 4 figures from me a month, and I was giving that altruistically. I was just giving it to her. You know, it wasn't court ordered or anything. When she got married, her husband recommended that we go through court, and I was like, hey, that's totally fine. Got it. It's the same amount. The court was like, oh, you're definitely taking care of her. So they decide on the same amount that I'm giving her. But now once we went through court, they now mandated that, she can only be a certain distance from me. If she's ever looking at moving, she has to let me know. So then now we're kind of learning the lessons of why we didn't go through court, because again, things ended, and we actually co-parented a lot better before she married, because the guy's just a very insecure, controlling, but anyway, that's a whole other topic there. But it was a very healthy parenting situation. We actually celebrated my daughter's birthdays together. And so it came from a place of altruism. Even though we weren't meant to be together, there was a lot of mutual respect. So it's possible in the sense of, if it didn't work out, someone's together for 15 years, it's way possible if, let's say, they just fell out of love.
Oh, I can't hear you. Oh, there you are.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, someone was calling, so I had to turn it off there. But the inverse of that is, like, let's say you just fell out of love, but you really still care for each other. That's different from, like, if there was like any kind of domestic violence or it was abusive.
Fair.
So it's kind of hard to, depends on the situation, I guess.
Right. I think that's a very valid fear, especially with men. I think men, and I could be wrong, but it does feel like, men are protective of their finances, even when they're just dating someone, they're just scared of being, taken advantage of financially, or someone who is looking to just be a sugar baby or whatever the situation is. I think there's a lot of that. And, men are a lot more like, I'm going to just get to know you first, because they're used to it, or the possibility is there. And maybe they've seen it happen to someone else. And then, again, I think this really does sound like it just comes down to money. And I would
say yes and no. It's more the outside controlling something that two adults deal with. I mean, money's a part of that. I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I provide, like, the value of a PG-rated relationship or whatnot when I really meet a woman that I like. But I'll be honest, I like spoiling. I actually am not afraid. What's that?
Well, good.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like, I am not afraid, even if I'm starting to meet the woman and I'm attracted to her. Like, I'm not afraid to be like, hey, here's, 300. Go pick out a dress from Saks because we're gonna go out to jazz. Like, that's just me. I'm not afraid of that.
More men like that, ladies.
Yeah, no. I mean, to me, honestly, it's sexy because I work hard for what I'm making, and if other dudes are trying to holler at her, then I'm showing, look, I think you're sexy, but at the same time, I'm trying to take care of her. And if she picks out a dress that we both like, it's sexy. So, I don't.
So yeah, no, absolutely. So within marriage, let's get back to.
Yeah, sorry.
Let's get back to. Well, yes, let's get back to that. But when people start having problems, especially in the beginning, because they have all these expectations of what their partner is going to be and what then they think they're supposed to do or not do, by the way, not do as well. What have you noticed? And maybe I'll start, like, I've just noticed, like, simple things. And this is not a reason to get married or not get married, but these are reasons that lead to divorce, which, someone could be, like, listening right now thinking, oh, well, I don't want to get married if, like, these stupid things are going to cause me to get a divorce. Like, we're good. Like, we're living together. We're fine. Like, let's leave it alone. But, simple little things like who does what chores and, like, who's paying for what. And, like, really, it's always that mundane everyday stuff that can get really complicated. And that's where all your stupid fights start bubbling up from. And it's annoying. It's just so annoying. But what happens, but the difference is, even if you're living with someone and this stuff is coming up, which it probably will, the difference is when you're living together, even when you're in a committed relationship, you have no plans of going anywhere, there's always this sense of freedom that I think people lose when they get married. And it's replaced with the sense of security, which is lovely. And people love security. We want that, that maybe we didn't feel completely in the relationship without the marriage. I mean, personally speaking, I'd like to get married because I feel like I'm going into marriage with really open eyes of what this could look like and how it could function in a really healthy way, and not in this fantasy, I just want to get married and have a wedding and blah, because that's just for 20-year-olds. Like, no offense to 20-year-olds watching, but like that is like,
Yeah.
You're really just looking to have a big dress and a big party. And the truth is, this is the other thing that I've really read about recently, is that once you get married, you suddenly start social isolating. Whether you realize it or not, you're suddenly like, wow, we just don't see our friends as much anymore. And like, we need to do everything together. And then that also breeds just contempt. And you're just like, oh my God, like, I don't want to be with you 24/7.
Yeah.
And it's a big, huge mess. There's just like pros and cons, right? Again, pro marriage here. But like remaining autonomous in your committed relationship and in your marriage, I think is the key. So if you're someone who's like, I want to get married, I really want to do this, I love, and it comes from love, right? Like we have to remember that this is all about like, it should be all about love. Like, I love this person so much, I want to put a ring on it, literally put a ring on it, be like, she's mine, he's mine. Like, I love them and I could never imagine not being with them. And just being together is just not enough. Like, it's very romantic, you know, and that's great too. There's nothing wrong with love, romance, all of the stuff. But, you know, again, like you've really got to go into it with, am I going to keep my life going? Am I going to now suddenly be reliant on this person financially in ways that I never was before, but now I'm expecting them to pay for, you know, the house that we buy, right? Like, I don't want to pay for the house. They'll pay for the house. Like, what? Were we just splitting the rent? Like, why is that happening now? And again, every relationship's different, but like, you've really got to be eyes wide open. Like, okay, we've been in this committed long-term relationship. We're happy. Things are good. However long it's been, you know, it could be just a year. But like, if we get married and go into this marriage, are we both going to commit to being in our autonomy, like seeing our friends separately, seeing our friends together, having people over, doing hobbies that we used to do? Like, it doesn't have to just be this codependent unit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that scares a lot of people off too, is like, oh my gosh, I had an ex say to me, this was the weirdest thing I'd ever heard. He's like, well, I mean, once we're married, you know, like, I'm not going to see my friends anymore. And I was like, why? Why would you not see your friends anymore? I don't want to see you all the time. Like, separate, please. Like, no, we're good. So I think that marriage can be really a beautiful thing. And I'm so grateful to have so many great examples of long-term, actually happy marriages. And it takes a lot of work on each side to be actually listening, not just hearing, but like listening to your partner's needs and continuing to evolve, but while also remaining like, okay, what do I need? What do I need for me that my partner doesn't have to give me, because they're not the freaking beacon of hope that now suddenly I think they're supposed to be. Like, they are not gods. And we do that. We like idolize our partners into something that they can never live up to. And once they don't, we're like, oh, it's not working.
We quit. Yeah,
you quit. And that's what's happening. Mic drop.
Man, I like that, because you know, that I wrote notes last night, and what you were saying kind of reminded me of like what I think needs to happen in like improved marriage, or and you talked about the wedding piece, which is interesting, because I think a lot of more women, you know, they get wrapped up in the wedding piece, you know, because it's fun. I can see how it can be fun for women. HGTV, you know, getting the dress, your friends are helping out, you're picking out the venue, the food. I mean, that's the best kind of event coordination ever. I mean, it's fun. I can see how it could be fun, right? but then they didn't think about the partnership piece, right? The marriage piece. So one of the ideas I had, and this is like the three things was like, okay, we get our oil change, we go get a checkup every, an annual checkup at the hospital or at the, at your doctor's. There should be like a couple's annual checkup, right? And so since the government wants to be involved in all that, okay, let's. So, for example, like gauging, is your man still driven, right? But let's say let's say he was a Fortune 500 executive or an entrepreneur, and you're like, man, he's so sexy because he invites me to Jamaica while he's on his little retreat, blah blah blah, this or that. Like that's what you liked about him, and then all of a sudden now he's become this like, he's 50 pounds overweight and he's just playing video games and like his company's not doing as well. And you're like, dude, this is why I wanted to like ride you because you had some drive and now it's gone, right? So I think part of that should be kind of an annual checkup where both couples or the couple are like saying, okay, let's gauge our communication level. Let's gauge the things I liked about you and see where it's at. And then, even if you want to make it honestly, like a fitness variance, if you both agreed, hey, look, yeah, we can gain like 10 to 15 pounds, especially if there's pregnancy involved. Obviously that's different.
I was going to say, so many women are going to be like, whoa.
No. Yeah. But, here's the thing. It's not just about the woman and they need to be at a certain weight. It's like the man too. Let's say there's a difference between a man just slightly gets out of shape once he's married because, woman's doing some good cooking and all that. And then he just totally lets himself go. Like there's a huge difference there, especially if there's a sexual attraction you have towards your man, especially if they're like under the age of like 45 where, metabolism, it slows down a little bit after 30 something, but there's no excuse for like a man to like go from like, going to the gym and in shape and all of a sudden gets married and like within a year, he's 50 pounds overweight. And, there's levels to this, right? So I'm being reasonable here. The other one that I thought was kind of wild, this is wild, this is controversial, but since we're talking about like freedom and having your space and whatnot, it'd be wild, okay, because you might have your celebrity crush or your little weekend in Vegas, like cheating clause. This sounds crazy. This sounds wild, but if you two love each other, I know this because I've been giving advice to couples that once they do their dirt on the side, whether the partner knows or not, they actually end up loving their partner more. I know it sounds kinky and crazy, but
no, I understand that. I just talked about that with cheating.
Yeah. So I mean, honestly, because we see this where it's like one time they mess up and all of a sudden all the stuff they invested in emotionally, all that is done. And especially if it's a public thing, now all your friends know, oh my gosh, she was such a great Christian woman. I can't believe that she hooked up with a personal trainer. Look, we have our very human side and we have a very carnal side. So Carl Jung talks about working on your shadow, right? You can work on your shadow in very healthy ways. Some people are like addicts, some people are dangerous folks, and some people's shadow could be just more in the sexual realm. And they may not want to be around their partner all the time because the libido goes away, even if you're still physically attracted to them and all that, because you need that freedom. And I don't mean you just take advantage of the freedom and sleep with someone, but that could be a trickle effect of that. So instead of just saying, oh, I'm going to end it because my hot personal trainer, he's been grabbing my hips, making sure my quad, hey, if that happens, but you actually tell your partner, hey, it's about to go down. I know that sounds like some 50 Shades of Grey stuff, but there's so much more honesty in that. And it can actually bring a couple more together than this like whole sneaky thing going on. So that's
all right. So I have definite thoughts on this. Okay, so the thing that I talked about the other day is when one partner cheats, does not tell the other person, there is a kind of a release. They just got away with something. It's a reward function. They do go back to their partner, let's say their spouse, their married spouse, and they actually are happier. They are interested. They're more sexually attracted because they've basically just done something illegal in their marriage. And there's just a whole flood of chemical things happening in their body. Right. Now, I'm all for when people want to be polyamorous and they're open and honest with their partner about that, and that is working for them. If that is working for them, more power to you. I could not do that, but that doesn't mean that I don't condone it for the people who are like, that's our thing. So, so fine. As long as there's communication and honesty. Now, if it's kind of like a weekend, like, oh, I'm going to Vegas, like, I'm gonna, like, you know, I get like a free hall pass. Again, if that's communicated and it's okay, fine. However, if that's just like a once in a blue moon kind of thing, I think that that can be very damaging for a relationship that is otherwise committed. Because it might seem harmless, but it isn't. And I don't care if it's the woman cheating or the man cheating, and whatever sort of type of relationship you're in, it's just damaging. You just feel less than. You feel it just starts to deteriorate it. And that's what happens with cheating, is that it just starts to deteriorate if it's not in a polyamorous open relationship. And even in that, I would actually say it it's so complicated. There's so many levels, and I don't want to be like, oh, this is the way it is and this is the only way it is. But it is just, it can be very deteriorating to a relationship. So I personally,
it all starts with intent, though. You know what I mean? Like it all starts with like clear intent, because like if you don't communicate with your partner because you're afraid of the backlash, or you just don't want to deal with it because maybe, you know, you're ambivalent. And I'm not talking the cheating clause, as I call it, or whatnot, but I'm talking just communication in general. Obviously that unravels, and that's dangerous, right? So it all starts with intent. Kind of like the whole subject itself, like a marriage. It's like, what's the intent of being married? You know, if it's emotional dependence versus like true love. You know, so like for me, I personally think it's kind of overkill. If me personally, if I did the whole poly thing again, I don't judge anyone's style on how they do things, but me personally, if it's like codified, like, hey, I'm poly, like it's just too much of a label, I guess. I don't know. I can't do that. But I also know that couples get bored, and not just sexually, but just being around each other all the time. It's like,
and that's exactly what I'm saying, is that you can't just be this codependent couple who doesn't have lives outside. I mean, you have to keep your life. You have to keep your friends. You have, I mean, I don't know, in a perfect world, I see like my husband like spending a Saturday with his friends, and I'm spending a Saturday with my friends, and we meet up later and we're like, how was your day? It's a weekend. Yes, we both saw our friends separately and not together, and we didn't spend it together either, and that's fine. Like, maybe we will tomorrow or whatever, but like, it doesn't have to be this like constant togetherness that really, that also deteriorates relationships. You know, you just can't be like that codependent. And I do know couples, one in particular, they're a much older couple, but they're very codependent, and it's like their own little world that they live in.
Like a little cult, almost like a two-person cult, right? Almost.
It's a two-person cult for sure.
I know it probably doesn't make sense. Sure. Yeah. So one thing I just thought about, when a first woman I ever lived with, this is back years ago. Wow, man, can't believe it. We had a 4-bedroom house, and what I liked about it, it was just me and her and the dog, but we had our own like separate playrooms. So she was big into like chakras and crystals, and that was her like, and yum living, aromatherapy. Remember, that was like her room to just do her stuff. And then I had my room. I was way younger then, so it was like Xbox was life. I was way younger, so it was like reading and gaming, you know. And I would just go in there to read, watch UFC, and then a little bit of video gaming. And then she did her thing. So when we got back to the bedroom, like I was turned the hell on because I missed her, even though she was in her own little, you know, room or whatever. And that kind of stuck with me. I was like, you know what, I like that. So I'll probably have that talk with, you know, the woman I end up with, like, hey, and they have to understand kind of what we're getting at. It's not that I don't like you, but this is kind of like a preventive check, right? You know, like we don't want the car to break down, so we need to make sure we fill up the tires right before it breaks down. So I think it's something I would want to do again. You know, if you know, if I were to, which is another thing about marriage that I'm looking forward to. If, you know, if if I end up going down that road, which, you know, I'm enthusiastic about seeing, you know, if it happens and who she is. But part of that would be I'm looking at houses, and part of it's just manifestation. Looking at a house and saying, okay, I can imagine me and my partner in crime walking in here, and that's, you know, that's our new house.
And our playrooms.
The playrooms, exactly. And depending how much you play, you might even have another playroom for just go to. But you know.
Okay, so to wrap this up, let's do a percentage. What is your percent on the pro to not get married and the percent on the pro to get married?
You're talking like 100%, like using percentage rate? Talking about me, or talking about like in general, like holistically?
I'm just going to ask you. I'm going to ask just you as a person.
Okay. Let's see. I'm not trying to color outside the lines, because I'm just going to think out loud here. I'm 100% for like having that forever bond with a woman. Now, when we break it down into marriage, whoever I end up with will be understanding, like, of my fears, I guess. So I am 70% for marriage, and then 30% not.
Okay. All right. I think that's really fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it comes down to like, what work have you not done on yourself? What are your fears? Like you just said, I've got fears. You know, whether those are, you know, government taking over, legal fears, money fears. Can you feel strong enough in your own self and your own choosing of the right partner? And also making sure that they've done their work, you know, and are continuing to do the work. It's not like you do all the work and you're like, now I'm perfect, let's get married. No, it's like continuous. And so many things come up while you're married that you can't be afraid of. You just can't be afraid of. But I think, you know, I guess maybe to leave it on a high note, if you are thinking of getting married and, or maybe you're engaged and you're watching right now, if you're thinking of getting married, just make sure that you do keep your life and you don't lose yourself in your new kids or your future children or your husband or your wife. Like, please keep your autonomy. It will save your marriage. And make sure that your spouse keeps their autonomy. It will save your marriage. You will have things to talk about, because that happens. You have nothing to talk about. And then you're like, why are we here?
Yeah.
I'm not attracted to you. I have nothing in common with you. We have nothing to talk about. So like, that's what keeps it fresh. You know? And I've heard different women who I do respect say this, like, oh, don't always be that available. And I do feel that there is something truthful about that. Like, you're committed, you're there, but just, you know, not completely like, honey, whatever you need, I'm here all the time. Like, a little bit unavailable, just tiny, and maybe that sounds awful and y'all can hate me, that's fine.
No, I get it, because it's the same thing we will do. We want y'all to kind of, goes back to neurotransmitters. You know, if I'm away at the gym and you're like, oh my gosh, I wish he was here right now helping me with this thing I can't reach. But I'm at the gym, you know, and maybe I want you to miss me a little bit. So I got it.
There you go. Missing is a good thing. It's not a bad thing, guys. Be there, be committed. Commitment is a reward, and it's a fantastic one if you are coming from the right place. And also, figure out your shit before you really decide to marry somebody. Because if you do that, guaranteed, you will have a much better chance at a happier marriage. And when things do get rough, you will actually know, you will have the humility to be like, okay, you need to work. Both of us. We both need to work. We're going to do it. You do it together as a team. Yeah. That's what builds a marriage.
I love that. See, and I feel like you can't only just be dating ready, right? Like witty and know how to dress a part and all that stuff. You got to be relationship ready. And you know, some people are A+ daters and they suck at relationships. And some people are ready for relationship, but they're just not putting in the effort or the style or the physicality or any of that stuff for the dating part. So you got to be dating relationship.
Right. We should do a live on that, because that is a huge problem that I just recently remedied in myself. So let's do another live on how to date with purpose, how to be a better dater, especially if you're relationship oriented.
And if you're a guy, make sure you get that dress if she's worth it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you so much, Chris. This has been awesome. And tell everyone how they can find you. Obviously, you're the Dating Doc, which is very
Yeah.
easy to find. But tell people how they can find you.
Yeah. So don't forget the THE in front of it. The Dating Doc. I have TikTok, Spotify, IG, datingdoc.com website. For any watching from San Antonio, we have a speed dating event coming up 13th of August. I love to humanize relationships with people that reach out to me. So just reach out to me. It doesn't mean I'm going to sell you on something. But at the same time, don't give me no 500-word essay and not support what I do as well. So that's me.
Time is money, guys. Time is money.
No. Yep.
All right, cool. Well, have a great rest of your Sunday, and I'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you having me on here. You have a good day as well.
Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye.